Saint Ambrose, our saint for today, is one of the four great Western doctors of the Church. He, along with Saint Augustine, Saint Jerome, and Saint Gregory the Great, these were the original four. So when the title Doctor of the Church was first invented by the Church, those are the four: Saint Ambrose, Saint Augustine, Jerome, Gregory the Great. So he was born in the 4th century, middle of the 4th century, so the year 340. So what had happened? 30 years previous to St. Ambrose being born, Constantine became emperor. The church was no longer persecuted, except for a brief time of Julian the Apostate, which would be when he was around 20. But in any case, he was born in a noble Roman family, and his father was a regional governor of a huge part of the empire. So his father was governor of large parts of Italy and France. Very wealthy and very capable family. Ambrose's father died when he was only an infant, and then the family moved to Rome, where Ambrose received the best education at the time, both in the sciences, in rhetoric, and in morals. And it may seem strange, but the ancient pagans, the Greeks and the Romans, they had a very advanced understanding of morality in some ways. In other ways not, but in some ways yes. And that will be interesting. That's going to come out later in his life, that education he had in morals. You know the cardinal virtues, prudence, justice, temperance, fortitude? It wasn't the church that came up with that. It was the pagans. The Romans recognized those four cardinal virtues. And the church recognized that the pagans were right. Yes, you are correct. Prudence, justice, temperance, fortitude, all the other virtues hang on those four. That's why they call it cardinal. A cardinal number, cardinal virtues, it means hinge, right? Like a door hinge. So all the other virtues hinge on those. If you're missing one, you're going to be missing a whole bunch of other ones. Anyways, so he got that education. And it was a little strange that Ambrose was born into a somewhat Catholic family. His older sister became a nun. She went to the convent. But he was never baptized. He never got any of the sacraments as a child. So I don't know how that happened. But when he got older, he enrolled himself as a catechumen, so he was on his way to the church. And let's see, at that time, what do we have here? He was very capable, and he at first joined, what did he do? I don't think he joined the military, but he entered politics, and like his father, became a governor. And so he was governor of Milan at a very young age. He was in his mid-30s, and he became governor. And at that time, the Arian heresy was very strong in the church. So he was 35 years old, 340, 40, 50, 60, 70. So this is just after Constantius, the son of the Emperor Constantine. Constantius was an Arian heretic, and so the whole empire was rife with Arianism. And Constantius had exiled all the faithful Catholic bishops and appointed Arian bishops in their place. And so in Milan, this was the controversy. Ambrose is not bishop yet. Ambrose is governor, and there were two bishops. There had been an Arian one and a Catholic one, and either they'd been exiled, but anyways, both of them had died, and they needed to elect a new bishop. And so there was a tumult in the city because both factions were going at it. Was it going to be an Arian bishop or a Catholic bishop? Who was going to be the next one? And so there's this riot going on in the city. And so Ambrose, right, being good governor, calls in the National Guard. Oh, no, he didn't do that. He called in the police. He didn't do that either. He went there himself. He personally went to where the riot was taking place, and he calmed both sides. And he began to speak on civic virtue and the importance of peace and so on. And he had been educated, like I said, in the best education. He had the best rhetoric, the best grammar. I mean, he was a very good rhetorician, very good statesman. And there was a pause in his oration to the crowd of Arian heretics and Catholics. And one young voice yelled out, "Ambrose for bishop." And the whole crowd took it up, "Ambrose for bishop." And this is not what he was expecting. Booing maybe, or cheers, but being asked to be bishop was not on his list of things he expected. He wasn't even baptized. was catechumen. So he fled. There probably wasn't many things that could cause such a brave soul to flee, but this was one of them. So he fled to the house of a fellow statesman, and there he hid. And his friend, he said, I don't know what I'm going to do. Like, why? These people want me to be bishop. This is not possible. So his friend wrote to the emperor, Emperor Valentinian at the time, and asked if it were permissible for a government official to become a bishop. And the Emperor Valentinian wrote back and said that he thought it was excellent that the Catholics, who were renowned for their high moral standards, would think so highly of a Roman governor that they would want a governor to be a bishop. So he thought it reflected well upon the empire, and so he gave his permission. And so thus Ambrose went from being nobody, not even baptized, to being a bishop basically in the span of a week. Literally, at the start of the week, he was baptized, and there's a lot to do to be a bishop. You may not think about it, but at the beginning of the week, he was baptized, confirmed, received First Holy Communion, and then he was tonsured a cleric, and then he went through all the minor orders: porter, lector, exorcist, acolyte, subdeacon, deacon, priest, and then bishop. It took a whole week to do all these things. It's like literally probably 36 hours of ceremonies if you did them all at once continuously. So there's quite a bit that goes into making a man a bishop. And Ambrose found that out the hard way. So he was 35 years old. 35 years old when he became bishop. And he corresponded heroically to the graces that came with it. Grace builds on nature. We forget this, right? We forget this. So I'll just keep going here, but footnote there. He completely embraced the example of Christ. He sold everything he had. He gave the money to the poor. He began living a life of strict penance and austerity. He considered himself done with the affairs of the world and gave himself over completely to the affairs of the church and of the salvation of souls. And he'd been a Catholic like a week. And this is everything he did. So what is our excuse? We've been Catholic our whole lives. We've received so many Holy Communions. We've gone to so many Masses. We've gone to so many retreats, said so many rosaries. Had such a great example. What is our excuse? Grace is supposed to perfect nature. And we forget that these pagans can achieve a very high level of virtue. They're supposed to. Mankind is supposed to. It says in the scriptures that after doing all that we are commanded, the servants say, we are but lazy and unprofitable servants. Because a high level of virtue is the minimum. That's the minimum if you're not baptized. Because the human mind and the human conscience and the human soul recognizes goodness, and we know right from wrong. And yet we somehow think that because, we do so little, and it's like, oh, well, you know what, I'm not an ogre, or I'm not too mean to my family, I'm not too lazy, right? I say some prayers, like I'm basically okay. You're a terrible Christian. You're not even a good pagan. You're not even a good human being at that point. Now, hold on, asterisk, right? I'm on a roll. God, we don't realize how high the bar is. God created mankind without grace to be good. Mankind, I've given a whole sermon on this before. What a dog's natural environment, well, forget about it. A fish's natural environment is the water. A bird's natural environment is the air. A worm's natural environment is the earth. That's proper to those creatures. But mankind's natural environment is virtue. It's goodness. It is honesty and truth. It is prudence, justice, temperance, and fortitude. We are supposed to be in that environment. We recognize it, and we think this is a good environment. This is good. I should do this, but I'm not going to because this is easier or this is pleasing to me right now. Anyways, moving along. More on that later, but Ambrose, that's why he was able to be such a good Catholic, is because he was a good person. We forget about it. Being a good person doesn't involve baptism. You can be a good person without being baptized. You can have prudence, justice, fortitude, and temperance. You can be honest. You can be hardworking. You can be diligent. You can be a good person and not be baptized. And guess what that means? Good persons can go to hell. Because if you're not baptized, you don't get into heaven. That's not what gets you into heaven, is being a good person. And guess what? You can be baptized and you can be a bad person. right? Because you can be intemperate, unjust, lack fortitude, and so on and so forth. We forget this. In God's eyes, who's infinite, here's a good person and here's a bad person, right? Compared to his goodness, none of us have anything. So, Ambrose, because he was such a good person, became an excellent Catholic. He had just received the sacraments, but corresponded completely. And so, as bishop, he took this and he completely just improved from there. He took all of his rhetorical skills, all of his statesmanship, all of his natural virtues, and he was just an incredible figure in the early church. And over the course of his episcopacy, he calmed riots, settled disputes, avoided conflicts, arranged for peace, staved off 2 invasions of the city of Milan, and so on, just to name a few. And he had the problem of having to teach while he himself was still learning. He was learning about theology while he was expected to give homilies on theology. So not easy, but he did both. And he was, as we should know or remember, instrumental in the conversion of St. Augustine. St. Augustine, that incredible philosopher, that incredible brilliant mind of the early church, said of St. Ambrose that he is one of those rare orators who speak the truth and speak it well, judiciously, pointedly, and with beauty and power of expression. Those two were good friends, Augustine and Ambrose. Ambrose was instrumental in Augustine's conversion. And if anybody knows the Te Deum, which is sung after, it's sung after Matins, but also after ordinations, St. Ambrose composed the Te Deum after Augustine's baptism. And so while doing all this, right, being involved in all these affairs of state, which he wanted to leave behind, but now was involved in a different manner, he lived an austere and penitential life. He fasted often. He kept vigils at night. And he received anyone who wanted an audience with him, from high state officials to troubled laymen who just wanted his advice. He would receive anybody. He was instrumental in defeating Arianism, getting rid of that heresy. And also, one of his favorite topics of preaching was on the beauty of virginity. And it said that he convinced so many young girls to take the veil that it is said that mothers would not let their daughters listen to his sermons. He was even accused of depopulating the empire. And so he was forced to defend himself by asking the young men if they had any trouble finding wives. So too much of a good thing, I suppose, in the eyes of the world. So, now one of his most dramatic moments came when the Emperor Theodosius. So the Emperor Theodosius, succeeding, Valentinian and so on, the Emperor Theodosius had quelled a rebellion and had ordered the slaughter of a village of 7,000 people. Not 7,000 soldiers, 7,000 people. A whole village, 7,000 of them, ordered them slaughtered. And the emperor had kind of recognized, okay, maybe I shouldn't have done this, but he went to enter into the church where St. Ambrose was. And Ambrose came out and physically stopped him from entering the church and said, you need to do penance before you can enter into the church. You're not in good standing. Now, okay, is that so difficult? We hear, okay, yeah, St. Ambrose, he came out and he told Theodosian, okay, you can't come in. We can't even find a single bishop to tell a politician, you can't receive Holy Communion for supporting abortion. He killed 7,000 people. You are responsible for condoning the deaths of millions. And you're going to come right up and receive Holy Communion, and the bishops, you're not going to say a thing? But we're talking about St. Ambrose now. If only. Today is the feast day of bold bishops. Guess what? Nobody can celebrate. So he valiantly refused entrance into his church when the Emperor Theodosius sought entry until he did public penance. You do a public sin, you do public penance. St. Ambrose is responsible for Ambrosian chant. Ambrosian chant is the antiphonal singing of the Psalms in choir. If you've ever, well, actually we do it now, the priests, Father McCarthy, has started praying the office here in the church. And so at 7:30 in the mornings, we're here, and also at 12 noon. We are typically here, and we sing back and forth. Two of us sit over there, one of us sits here, and we sing the Psalms back and forth in Latin. That was St. Ambrose. St. Ambrose invented that, this singing back and forth antiphonally, and we take it for granted. Oh, that's what choirs do? Ambrose, right? Ambrose introduced that into the church. And he was also an early witness of the church's doctrine of baptism of desire. He was instructing Valentinian's son in the faith, but before he could be baptized, he was killed by political rivals. And Ambrose said, in speaking of this untimely death, that due to his great desire for baptism, even though he was not physically baptized, he received it in spirit from the great mercy of God. And that would have been in the middle of the 4th century. So there is a theological, historical proof from tradition. Baptism of desire has long been held by the church. So he died on 4 April, but his feast day is kept today, which was the anniversary of his installation as bishop. And 4 April in 397 was Good Friday. So what a day to die, right? The day of your death is important, and he died on Good Friday in imitation of Christ himself. So, I mentioned earlier I was kind of harsh about how worthless and lazy we are, right? How high the bar is. Don't worry about any of that. Right? The important thing is, when we are striving for virtue, to realize how little virtue we have. Virtue in our estimation is nothing. God knows what virtue is. And I want to tell you, I don't know what humility means. I don't know what charity is. I don't know what sanctity is. Right? I don't know that. Nobody does. St. Teresa of Avila doesn't know what that is. And she would tell you. So don't worry about it. If you think, I don't know how to get these virtues, I don't know what they are, you're in the right place. That's square one. That's square zero. You're in the right place when you're admitting, I'm not holy and I don't know what it is or how to get it. That's why you look at, what do the saints tell us to do? Be patient, be kind, attend to the duties of your state in life, be disciplined, practice the cardinal virtues. You don't have to be spiritual rocket scientists to be saints, right? You just have to do normal things very well with love of God. So do not worry about a thing. If people accuse you of being worthless, lazy, and stupid and ignorant, you're like, yes, that's all true. Because compared to God, all of it's true. Don't worry about a thing. Be what you are, be where you are, and just worry about it. Doesn't matter how low you think you are, how far away you think you are from God. Just accept it. This is where I am, and I want to get closer to God, and I don't know how, but I'm going to start doing little things right in front of me very well, and God will take care of the rest. So don't worry about a thing. But that keeps us from pride when we admit that. When we admit that we don't know what sanctity is and we're not holy, that's the beginning. That's the basics. So a lot to think about from the life of St. Ambrose. So let us ask for his intercession that we might be good persons, and in so becoming so, right, we might be good Catholics, better Catholics, which is what God expects from us, examples of the world, not just in faith, but in humanity. God bless you all in the name of the Father, Son, and the Holy Ghost. Amen.